Good evening. Welcome, everyone. My name is Eric Lucan. I currently have the privilege of serving as the chair for the SMART Board of Directors. I want to officially welcome all of you to the September 14th SMART Listening Forum for Windsor. Tonight's forum is part of a community-wide listening tour where we're really seeking to engage in meaningful conversation with North Bay residents, SMART train riders, future riders, and all stakeholders throughout the North Bay. I'm just going to give a couple quick introductions. We have several of our SMART staff joining, including our general manager, Farhad Mansourian, our chief engineer, Bill Gamlin, our CFO, Aaron McGrath, Joanne Parker, Matt Stevens, and a whole crew of folks from SMART. Other SMART board members that are joining me are Director Deb Fudge, and also a Windsor Town Council member, as well as Chris Rogers, a Santa Rosa City Council member. Deb's going to say a few words here in just a little bit. I do want to thank Director Rogers and Director Rabbit for helping to set up these series of listening sessions in Sonoma. Just some quick logistics. All of the listening forums are going to be recorded, and video of this meeting and other forums on this listening tour will be posted to the SMART website and available as a video archive for anyone to access. Comments from all these listening forums will be available online and will be presented to the entire SMART Board of Directors at a regularly held public board meeting. And as the Board of Directors, we take your ideas and thoughts about SMART into consideration as we are developing policies and formulating decisions about the future of SMART. So we really appreciate your participation this evening. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Deb Fudge to say a couple words. And Deb, thank you, along with Windsor, for virtually hosting us this evening.
Thank you, Eric. I also want to welcome everybody, and I'm particularly excited as a board member on SMART and as a council member in Windsor to welcome you all to this Windsor listening session. We're really excited in Windsor, and you can see from my background, which is the Windsor train station that I always use on Zoom. We're excited that the SMART train will be arriving in Windsor in late 2021. We've been working really hard since the first initial operating segment to move the train northward to all the way to Cloverdale, and Windsor is the next stop. And you've been able to witness the construction going on, the new track being laid down, the bridges being built, and there's a lot of different things going on that you're going to hear more about today. And I'd like to introduce Bill Gamlin, who's our chief engineer, who will give you sort of a mini update on what's going on with the construction in Windsor. And then as we get your feedback, and what we want to hear is all of your feedback, what you want the schedules to be, what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like changed, you know, things that, that we need to hear. But you'll also be able to ask questions of the staff as well and find out what's going on and what will happen as we start opening up Windsor. So now I would like to introduce Bill Gamlin, our chief engineer, to give us an update.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Director Fudge. The Windsor Extension Project is a 3-mile extension of the SMART passenger rail system from its current northern terminus at Airport Station up to the town of Windsor. As part of that project, we're replacing all the track and the rail. We will be constructing a new station in downtown Windsor, as well as a parking lot to serve that station, and a continuous pathway from Airport Boulevard up to the station for that 3-mile distance. We started construction this year in January. At this point, we have removed vegetation and cleared the right-of-way. We've removed old track, taken out the old railroad bridges, and we're starting to put things back together. We are rebuilding the railroad bridges during our summer construction work windows. We have received railroad ties on site, all of our rail, welded long rail strings together, and positioning ourselves for more work next year. We'll have a bit of a lull during the rainy season, but we'll be positioned to do quite a bit once springtime comes. We're also reconstructing and widening Airport Boulevard for Sonoma County, and that work will carry us through the rest of the calendar year. Thanks.
Thank you, Deb, Director Fudge, and thank you, Bill Gamlin. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Director Rogers. He's going to be our MC or moderator for the rest of the listening session, and he's also going to introduce one more special guest before we hear from you. Chris, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you folks for joining us tonight. As the chair mentioned, I think it'll be really helpful for folks to understand sort of how we're going to be using these listening sessions. We are taking notes, both myself, Eric, Deb, and staff. These are recorded and will be available for the public to see. And we are asking folks to really try to frame their thoughts around a couple of questions. The most important one is, what do you see as the future of the SMART train in your jurisdiction? And then also, what sorts of changes do you think that SMART needs to make? And that's a very broad question, and I understand that. What you'll see from us a little bit is we'll take those notes. I'll ask for some clarification if folks are a bit unclear, and we'll work our way through it today. Any feedback we will take back to the SMART board. We'll have a full discussion about everything that we hear, not just what we want to hear, because I do know that Deb at least is primed for some positive comments, but we'll take everything back and we'll have a broad discussion about what the future of the rail system looks like. We also will be having specific study sessions on many of the things that we are hearing. I'll give you a couple of examples. We heard in Santa Rosa about a number of different governance reforms that people would like to see. We'll likely have a study session on that, but we will discuss everything, finances, whatever we hear in these meetings, we will be discussing. You also are welcome to email us if your comments don't make it in, or if you think of things later. I've received a number of emails since our Santa Rosa listening forum from folks. I'm taking all of that in. You will get a response from me if you haven't already. And some of them were very dense comments, so I appreciate that. And then you'll also see us publicly discussing those as well. And so with that, I'm going to start off by turning it over to the Mayor of Windsor, Dominic Fipoli.
Thanks, Chris. And I want to thank the entire SMART board and staff for doing a listening session in Windsor. I think I can speak for the vast majority of our town when I say that we're excited for the SMART train to be arriving in our downtown late next year. It's long anticipated and waited for and wanted. In Windsor, we are and have been in developing growth around our station area to encourage lots of rail transit for Windsor residents when SMART arrives. So we've got a number of residential projects that we've been working on for the last number of years that will help accentuate and work with the SMART train arriving. So I wanted to say to my residents who are on that this is an opportunity for us as people living in Windsor to ask questions, share concerns, give ideas to the SMART board so that we can have an even better product when it arrives next year. So thank you guys for having us and being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, folks, so you have, if you're on your desktop or laptop, you likely have the raise hand feature in the bottom right-hand corner for your Zoom. If you're on an iPad, I believe it's the top right corner for people to be able to raise their hands. Go ahead and raise your hands if you have a comment or if you have a question, and we will call on people as they pop up into the chat. I also do see that we have had Sam Salmon join, a council member from the town of Windsor as well. Sam, thank you so much for being here. Sam, if you're interested in making comments, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom as well. But I know you're mostly also here to listen, having just come from our Sonoma County Transportation Authority meeting as well, sitting through a couple of hours of that. So let's go ahead and get started here with Rebecca. If the administrator could go ahead and unmute Rebecca, and Rebecca, go ahead and kick us off.
Hi, my name's Rebecca, and I've lived in Windsor more than 10 years, and we are really, or I should only speak for myself. I'm really excited about the train coming to Windsor. When my daughter was a baby in 2008, my father wheeled her to the information desk and say, "When's the next train?" because my family is very into public transportation. I work at Santa Rosa Junior College at both the Petaluma and the Santa Rosa sites, although everything's remote right now. And I have an elderly mother in Petaluma. And I'm really looking forward to Windsor residents and myself being able to pop down to Santa Rosa. Right now it's, too many trains, planes, and automobiles, lots of transfers to get to the places that we need to go. I also really miss the weekend schedule because that's when I visit my mother, and she's elderly and stuck at home because she's not allowed out because of COVID. And it would be nice to pop down there and go shopping for her or whatever. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, great, Rebecca. So if I can paraphrase, what I just heard from you is too many transfers, need for more integration in our public transit systems, which Sam will laugh about because we just talked about that for 3 hours. And then also, I heard prioritizing putting back the weekend schedule so that you can come down to Santa Rosa and spend your hard-earned tax dollars in our city and help our local economy.
Right. And I also wanted to say that in terms of being a commuter for work, the overpass between the Santa Rosa North train station and it's not the JC, but it's like right over there, because that is just an evil intersection area. Like I would be on my bike, but I wouldn't want to be on my bike. So hoping that will come through.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, Rebecca, our staff in Santa Rosa submitted a grant application earlier today to the state to finally build the Bike and Pedestrian 101 bridge in that area. So hopefully you'll see that as well. Again, folks, if you've got a comment, question, feel free to hit the raise hand function so that I can call on you. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. I see you've got another comment.
Well, you know what? I'll switch hats for a second and ask a question on behalf of our local restaurants, wineries, breweries, things that are kind of more local tourist related. As SMART gets farther up into North County, I think our hope is to see more and more day trippers that are coming up to enjoy, our wine, our beer, and our restaurants. What I think that is the concern I've heard, and I guess the question is, are there going to be options, hopefully, for weekend evening travel back home? Because right now I think that's been the hard part. The hard disconnect is that people want to take the train up in the morning, but then they have to leave before that they can go to dinner or finish wine tasting. So is that something that you guys are looking at for to support tourism, is evening trains home on the weekends?
And also, Dominic, I'll speak as a citizen. Also, we have Thursday night concerts where 7,000 people come to our concerts, and many of them come from Santa Rosa North, to come to our concerts, and they get out at 8 p.m. on a Thursday. So that might also add to your question about later trains when there's special events, or
just a train in the evening so that people can come up to North County and then get home safely without having to worry about a car.
All right, I hear you. And what I also just heard, and I'll make sure that I have it in my notes for our discussions, primarily when we talk about schedule, is perhaps some form of partnership with some of the bigger events that are happening. We've also heard the fairs, when obviously the fairs are able to operate as a potential special schedule that SMART could do to try to coordinate with our local jurisdictions as well. Is that about right?
Exactly. Deb brought up a great point about Thursday nights concerts for us in Windsor.
Great. And then you also hinted there too, and I've heard this from a number of other folks, about first and last mile, got to be able to get onto the train for these events as well. But I know it's also only a short walk for you all from the stop. Great. Do we have anybody who has a comment or a question yet? Oh, go ahead, Sam. I see you.
Probably just a comment and a question. I've never, maybe there can be an explanation why freight has been a consideration with regard to the smart line. I had a good friend that passed away a long time ago, Bill Pacente, who raised this issue well before SMART was in construction. And it seems like it's been kind of a setback the whole time. And I suppose it's gone too far to really do much about it. But I wonder, I still see there's talk about freight on the SMART line. And I haven't seen that being a aspect of transit in the other cities I've visited and used transit. When I go to San Diego, I guess we can't compare it, but their transit and their rail system is so much different than ours in terms of who uses it, in terms of equities. We talk about equity a lot, and I'm going to raise this. Why there's no talk about a station in Fulton is really heartbreaking to me. And I think we all know the answer to it. It's, well, I don't want to even say it. There's no customer there. But that's an issue that I think we're dealing with Black Lives Matter. And so it's kind of critical, and I apologize for it, but if you read the comments that we see in the Press Democrat articles, you kind of know that there's a feeling out there that our transit isn't really meeting the need for what we think transit has a need, and that's low-income people. And,
Okay.
and I know that, and I guess it's never meant to be that, but I don't know that it really has met the needs of even the commuter. So as you go forward, more thought to how it can become transit rather than commuter would be helpful for me, to kind of meet the needs that I think we're starting to see. And COVID's pointed out that the people that may have thought would be using SMART have that ability to work from home more than those people that use Sonoma County Transit.
So
Thanks.
Sam, I think what I just heard, and I want to make sure I'm not putting words in your mouth, is both a question or conversation around equity and use of the train, as well as it sounds like overall cost to make it more effective or easier for folks who are lower income to use it. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's, and areas they serve. And I think just the type of equipment that SMART has chosen tends to be reflective of who they want for their customer.
All right. And then I think there was also a question there about Fulton and Councilwoman Fudge. I want to, my recollection, and I may be wrong, but I think you would know better, but my recollection is that the enabling legislation that was done by Joe Nation made it so that the transit stops had to be within city jurisdictional boundaries.
Close, but a little bit. That's what we thought initially. When we went back and reread the legislation before the airport station was built, the enabling legislation actually says smart stations can only be in unincorporated areas, north of Healdsburg.
Oh, that's
so
correct.
It looked like Geyserville was left out. So that, then we were able to add the airport station with $14 million in state money that Noreen Evans got us. But we just did a study on the feasibility of a Fulton station, and Bill can probably address this better, but it was that the station is too close to the airport station, and there isn't enough. It's like less than 1.5 miles, and the train would barely start before it would have to stop again. And so there were a number of factors that the county asked us to look into with regard to Fulton recently, and it was determined not to be feasible for the cost since the airport is so close. And Bill would be able to maybe give more detail.
Yeah, we can definitely take that back and make sure that we're messaging that and putting out more of that information for the council member as well. I don't think we need to do it on the listening forum right now, because we're going to try to not get into too much of a back and forth, but I did want to make sure that that was at least touched on. So thank you, council member, for your comments. Is there other folks who have a question, a comment? I think it's Ed. I think I see you waving your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. I submitted questions prior to the call. I didn't know if you're going to address those at a different time, or should we touch on?
Go ahead and touch on it now.
Okay, I think one of the concerns in the community, I know the concern I have, is project schedule and the cost of the project. And supporting SMART going forward with additional taxes and fees and public funds, what's being done different that the community should know about to facilitate better schedule management as well as cost control?
Okay. And so let me dive into that a little bit. Ed, are you asking us to try to answer that question now, or are you saying that we need to have a good discussion and then report back to the public on what we're doing different coming out of Measure I?
I think in the supporting project, the SMART train system, I think the public needs to know at large. So we have a very small segment of the public here. I think it's worthwhile making that very discussed openly so that people understand where their tax funds are going. I've conversed with the State Attorney General's office, who referred me back to the project office. I went to the project office and they were very cooperative in providing to me the contractor that SMART hired to do financial audit review. And I found it interesting that the client was paying the evaluator for the financial review. So I think that needs to be expanded upon and let people know what's really being done to control cost and schedule.
Okay. I appreciate that. I've got that down in my comments here. Did you have another question or a comment that you'd sent in earlier, Ed?
I think that the SMART train brings a lot of opportunity. One of the things that I'm distracted by when we look at advertisements about who's using the SMART train, it doesn't seem to support visually that this is supporting commuters. I see a lot of folks like myself, gray hair, retired, who are getting on the train, enjoying the use of the train, but does that really support the idea that we're getting people off the 101 corridor, reducing pollution, and facilitating a better way to get down to the Bay Area? And I made that commute myself for years, and it's brutal. And I think that with remote access, I think it'd be a part of our future because of the pandemic. SMART might be a good way to get people to access centers if they can't afford it themselves. We used to do that back in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of opportunity SMART presents, but I think it needs a different kind of advertising. It needs to show that people are in the working time of their lives and not in the retirement times, to sell the idea that SMART facilitates commuting for employment.
Okay. Talk more about the commuting aspects of it and less the leisure rail type aspects of it, if that's correct.
That sums it up. Very good.
Perfect.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you folks having this forum.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for being here. All right. Now, Herbert, you're unmuted. Did you have a comment? Okay, not hearing from Herbert. Again, if anybody has a comment or a question, please feel free to hit the raise hand function. I do also see that we have Supervisor David Rabbit has been able to join us as well. David is not only a supervisor, but he is a SMART board member. So David, do you have any quick comments that you wanted to make while folks hit the raise hand button if they still have comments to be made? Let's go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate being here. I look forward to listening to what everyone has to say regarding the future of SMART. I think it is bright and it is ours to control. And I look forward to hearing the concerns, making sure that we can incorporate those as we move forward as an entity. It is difficult times with COVID, but I can tell you it's difficult times for all public transit agencies out there, and we are not alone in that. So we are continue to do our outreach, talk about how SMART can really fulfill our county's vision and Marin County's vision of connecting ourselves and along our corridor going forward. So I appreciate that and look forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
Perfect. Thank you, Supervisor. Sheila, first of all, thank you so much, Sheila. Sheila is one of our regulars who has been engaged with the train since I've been on the SMART board. So I really appreciate you being here. Go ahead, Sheila, you're up.
unmute. There we go. Okay, yeah, I agree with the last commenter. I have to admit, thank you for the compliment. I have to admit that I am retired and gray-haired and ride for leisure, but I slightly disagree that leisure is the lesser one of the two, although commuter is very important. I love the heck out of the train. I adore the train. And my favorite ride is to go from Petaluma to Airport Boulevard and then bike up to Windsor. And just want to remind people that Windsor happens to be the bicycle, or was anyway, the bicycle capital of the United States or something. It's just a great bicycle town. I also like my Santa Rosa rides, and my bicycle shop is in Santa Rosa. And I have a few I'd like to do in Santa Rosa. So to me, the north, from Petaluma north, is so important. And Windsor is just going to be the cat's meow when, you know, it's finally there and we can just spend all kinds of time with the concert and things. I can't wait until we get, I'm just so excited about getting more runs going, because today I wanted to go to the bicycle shop and miss a 9:30, and I thought, uh-oh. So it was 3:30 and I could not make it on that 3:30 run up to Santa Rosa and get back for this. So I'm looking forward to more runs. But Smart, you just are wonderful. You are the very best. And I just cannot think of I've not been able to ride a bus. And so it's just riding the train is just fantastic for me. It's a great way to have my leisure and my touring, and especially around the towns of Windsor and Hillsburg. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you for being here. Next, we'll go to Matt Windrum. Matt, go ahead.
Hi. Thanks so much. I just wanted to comment about a couple of things. One is I'm a sort of an occasional train rider, but I do use it to commute from Windsor to San Rafael, and it worked very well for that pre-pandemic. You know, I think the rate structure is something to consider. You know, I know that there's obviously income from the fare-paying passengers, but that if the rate structure, I think, was reduced, I mean, I just got to believe that we would see higher ridership, you know, especially when you start to talk about people using it for things other than just strictly commuting to and from work or longer types of trips. Really looking forward to the Windsor station opening. You know, obviously you can see a lot of people that like that north, you know, the trip up to the wine country and the microbreweries, and that'll be fantastic. I think the other thing that the Smart Board probably owes to everybody is a real thorough examination of the reality of delivering a train to Cloverdale, that stretch from Healdsburg to Cloverdale being so lightly populated, the traffic issues being as significantly different as they are compared to the rest of Sonoma and Marin counties. That I just think that you know, this whole pandemic has changed how we have to look at so many things, and the conventional wisdom. You know, I'm commuting now, and the commute traffic hasn't been the same for the last 6 months as it certainly was before. And in order to keep people interested in the train viable, I mean, I think it has to be an affordable, convenient solution for everybody. So I love it. I mean, I love the trains themselves. The opportunity to do some work while you're riding is fantastic. But those are just kind of some of my comments that I hope the board is going to be considering as they move forward.
Yeah, so Matt, so I heard a couple of things there. I heard taking a really strong look at sort of the cost-benefit analysis of going between Healdsburg and Cloverdale. I also heard the rate structure as being something that you were interested in us looking at. And let me ask you kind of a question, because as a board member, and I will say I see a couple other board members who have jumped on, including Dan Hilmer from down in Larkspur. One of the questions that we often are trying to suss out from the public is what is more important to you as a rider, as a potential rider, a lower cost or a lower rate to ride, or completing the line? Would you accept a longer build out to finish the line if it meant that the rate structure was changed and was lower?
Yes, I personally would be. I mean, now it happens that you're building it into Windsor, which is where I'm, one end of the line. But I mean, I think if you just look at overall population density, I think that would be a trade-off that a vast majority of people along the SMART system would probably make, because the population is predominantly going to be between Windsor and Larkspur. So yes, I think if it either had to be a different length of build out or type, I mean, if it was something else that was meeting transit needs between Cloverdale and say Healdsburg, I know it's not necessarily I was never a fan of the express buses running on the railroad stretch from Healdsburg to Cloverdale fairly regularly, and you don't usually get stuck in a traffic jam there. Whether there could be some alternatives to deliver transit to those areas that absolutely need it and connect them to the SMART train, but at the cost of what it is to move the train, or to continue the line those miles, it seems like it's a not such a good trade-off to pay for that all the way.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Matt. I'll take your comments back. And just as a reminder for folks who are joining our meeting, all of this input and these questions that we're sort of asking will be brought back to the SMART board for full discussions in the public, and as well as categorizing some of our study sessions that you'll see over the next year and a half or so. If you have a comment, if you have a question, or if you have an idea, hit the raise hand function on Zoom so that we can call on you. And Mr. Mayor, it looks like you got another comment.
Yes, I have a comment that may seem self-serving for Windsor, but growing up, I would spend some of my summers with my cousins in Italy, and we use the train for everything. One thing that seems to it might make sense now that we're going all the way from Larkspur to Windsor is looking at some express trains to encourage one for both events and for commuting. So going terminus to terminus with maybe just stopping at whatever the top two most populated stops are, because it would dramatically cut down on obviously the time it takes, and hopefully encourage more people that are literally just using the train to get from the southernmost point from the ferry terminal to as far north as they can go, would use the train more if they know they don't have to stop over and over and over and over. So I don't know if you guys have looked at throwing in some express trains into the route as it comes up. And then the second one is a question, because I get it all the time and I'm not quite sure. As we come out of COVID and we're all excited to start going to sporting events again, what is the plan or the idea for coordinating with the Giants and the Warriors schedules for the ferries that go to the games?
Yeah, and I appreciate those comments. I will put the express trains question and ideas in with the overall special scheduling and types of changes that we might be able to discuss here. And so we'll make sure that we'll have that conversation coming up as well. I do hear you on the sporting events. That would be, we can make that one work. And I know that there have been some challenges in the past, but I know we're trying to work on that as well. Burr Wilson, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go for it.
Very good. All right, I utilize the train to go down to San Rafael, commute to work there. I'd like to offer a couple of suggestions. I'm noticing a lot more electric bicycles are being used by the public.
Mm-hmm.
The bikes are heavy, and lifting them up onto the hooks in the end of the car is really difficult and subject to damage on the bike. So I'd like to see the trains make some more accommodations for bikes to be parked on their wheels. I'm noticing Golden Gate Transit is doing social distancing on their buses. Every other seat is being blocked off. I think maybe you could take some of the seats out of the train coaches, and allow that area to be used for parking bikes on their wheels. That's one suggestion. And the other is because the bikes tend to get put together and things sometimes get, there's a contention between passengers. When are you getting off, and is your bike at the bottom of the stack? Why don't we have some tags that we can hang on our bikes? Just take them off the wall and it says, I'm getting off in Cotati, and somebody else's bike says, I'm getting off in Santa Rosa, and we can move bikes around so that we're not trying to unhook somebody else's bike at the station with a limited 30-second stop. So those are my comments about, I'd like to see the train be more bike friendly.
All right. Thank you, Bert. So I heard a little bit better ease in trying to get the bikes on and off the train, as well as maybe some form of categorization to try to help speed up that process. I also heard potentially, especially during COVID, it sounds like utilizing some of the extra room that we have for bikes to be able to ride. Let me ask you a quick question, because we do have some areas where the bikes stand up and hook in. Are you finding that, maybe less so now that we're in COVID, but at least prior, were you finding that for folks with an electric bike that they were having a hard time utilizing those because the trains during commute hours were so full?
Well, I rode the train this morning and the hooks were all full with standard bikes. We had a pretty good passenger load on train number 1. I would just say that it's the weight of the electric bikes that is the issue. Just getting into those vertical hooks, you got to be a strong man.
I appreciate that. And I will also point out, bikes are the fastest growing segment of the bike market, as people keep reminding us. So it is good for us to be thinking about how that trend will impact the train. So I appreciate it.
Last comment, if the C car, the coach that would have gone in the middle of the train, is still on the burners, I think that would be the perfect place to implement these bike-friendly accommodations on board the train. Thank you for the opportunity to speak out here.
No, absolutely. Thank you. So again, folks, if you've got a comment, a question, an idea, go ahead and hit that raise hand feature. And again, we are specifically looking at what changes folks want to see to the SMART train, as well as what you think the future of the SMART train holds for Windsor, and more broadly throughout the line as well. Obviously, we've been hearing from folks who are from Windsor, who also commute or who utilize the train. And now is a perfect opportunity with a number of board members on for us to have this conversation. I have not seen anybody else raising your hand. So if you're waiting, okay, Steve, I was going to say, if you're waiting until the end, don't wait, just jump on in. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, thank you for allowing a Santa Rosa resident in on the Windsor visit. I was very pleased with the presentation that we got at a recent Smart Board meeting about the ventilation systems and the rapidity with which air is exchanged and fresh air is brought into the coaches. I have not seen any advertising that's making that available to the general public. Unfortunately, I'm sheltering in place, and so I haven't been riding the train recently. Maybe some of that on the trains that I haven't seen. But I think it's time for us to begin to let the public know that while social distancing is a good thing, in transit atmosphere, if people are masked, certainly people in the Orient are finding that there is not much spread of the virus due to people riding transit. And my hope is that we'll do something to find out whether there is any evidence, any place that anybody on a transit operation here in our county or in the Bay Area can trace the spread of the virus to a transit rider. Because I think there may be excessive fear that. And it would certainly be helpful to everyone if we were not overly afraid of that kind of contact. Thank you.
I heard telling we hear this on a number of different issues, but telling the story better. But you're saying specifically around safety measures on SMART to try to bring folks back, and so some better marketing around that as well, and some better discussions around that. Is that fair, Steve?
Yes. I think we need to begin to restore people's confidence in the safety of riding trains, even though they may become a little bit more well occupied than they have been recently.
Perfect. And I will also mention, we in Santa Rosa, we did a community survey around our Santa Rosa City bus riders, and we feel reasonably confident in the survey that folks will come back when they start to feel safe. So I think it's a good point for us to continue to talk about at SMART, is how do we make folks feel safe so that the riders that we had grown, and we did see ridership growing, will come back and utilize the train. I'm looking to see if there's anybody else who'd like to make a comment. If not, we definitely can wrap up a little bit early. As I mentioned, folks are always welcome to send emails to the board members. Our emails are available on the SMART website, and all of that information will be included for our broader discussions. I know Windsor's a little bit easier since everybody is ready and anxious to get the train here coming up, and that's what I've heard the most from folks leading into this, is just get the train to us, and that's where we're headed. So if there are no other hands, I can turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to do a close.
All right. Thank you, Director Rogers. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Our other SMART board members that joined, Director Hilmer, Director Rabbit, Director Fudge, and Director Rogers. Also, thank you to Town of Windsor for virtually hosting us, to the mayor, to Sam and to Deb, all for being here and all the feedback you've shared with us. This is just one of many listening sessions, and we encourage you to help spread the word on the others and reach out. This is not a one time where we go and hear from you. This is something we're doing regularly, and we're trying to expand the ways to hear from you. So we're excited to be expanding to Windsor, and really appreciate our staff being online as well to provide that update. I don't want to take up any more of your time this evening, so I'll let you all go, and please stay in touch. We want to continue to hear from you. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap things up, and thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, folks.